I was kicked out at 16 and struggled for years. Now I have a house, and my sister and her junkie husband have invaded and demanded to live with me. When I was 16, my parents and twin sister kicked me out. I lived in a tent and struggled for years. Now I have a house, and they showed up uninvited with my sister's family, demanding to move in. My sister was the one who convinced our parents to throw me out at 16, claiming there was no space for me. I spent 12 years fighting to secure my own place, and now they want me to let my sister move in because she's pregnant with her fourth child. As a 28-year-old man, I've endured my parents' toxicity since childhood. My twin sister has always been a thorn in my side. People say twins support each other, but in my case, my twin drags me down whenever she can. Childhood bullying wasn't enough. She has reappeared in my life, wanting to move into my house with her family, despite being the one who threw me out at 16. Her narcissism, fueled by our parents' poor parenting, is relentless. They always wanted a daughter and made it clear they would have terminated the pregnancy if it had been just me. I owe my existence to my sister. My sister never missed a chance to flaunt her entitlement. Growing up unwanted in my household was tough. Everything revolved around her. Despite being the same age, I wasn't allowed to touch her toys. She often got new clothes while I only received clothes on Christmas and our birthday. If we didn't share a birthday, they wouldn't have bothered celebrating it. In fact, if I didn't share my birthday with my sister, I wouldn't exist. I got the bare minimum, not out of love, but to save their faces from judgmental relatives. The only positive aspect of my childhood was my grandfather, the only person who saw through their BS. Sadly, he passed away when I was 13. That was the worst day of my life because I had no one to have my back. We lived in a cramped house in the suburbs. My sister and I shared a room, but it felt more like I had a bed in a tiny closet under her room. The entire space was filled with her clothes, toys, and posters. Complaining was not an option, as my parents believed they were doing enough for me. My sister didn't like me being in her room, so I was only allowed in at night to sleep. Even when I was sick, I had to lie on the couch because, as a girl, she needed privacy. I couldn't wait to turn 18 and move out. It seemed my family was even more eager to get rid of me. When we were 16, my sister got pregnant by a 19-year-old loser. His parents had kicked him out after he failed the 8th grade 3 times. My parents got them married, and my dad found him a job as a cleaner at his factory. My father, who works as a mechanic at an automobile manufacturing company, brought him home. Naturally, I had to move out of my room to make space for him. Our house had only 2 rooms and a tiny living area. When I asked if I could sleep on the couch, my father refused, saying he uses it when my mom's snoring becomes unbearable in winter. I was told to find a place for myself. To make matters worse, my loser brother-in-law would say, "Dude, it's not tough to find a place for yourself." My parents threw me out when I was 15, and yet I managed to pull my life together. Now I have a family. Trust me, it gets better out there. I sighed. Yeah, if being a junkie and impregnating a minor means putting your life together, then sure. Most of my relatives lived far away, and my parents threatened me not to show up at any of their places to avoid exposing their toxicity. I asked a few friends if I could crash on their couches, but no luck. Why would their parents allow me in their house when my own parents kicked me out? One classmate living in a garage let me stay for a few months until his parents found out and kicked me out. I slept on a bench on the sidewalk for a few days until the cops rounded me up and brought me home. My parents claimed I had run away. They took me in that night, but my father got me a makeshift tent from a junkyard and told me to set it up in the backyard as a reward for staying silent in front of the cops and not showing up at relatives' places. The tent was still safer than sleeping in the open. Summer was bearable, but winter was brutal. One night, it was so cold I thought I might die from the cold. I knocked on the house but no one responded. Desperate, I knocked on my parents' bedroom window, and my dad yelled from inside not to disturb him or he'd come out and knock me down. I felt so miserable that I wanted to die. I cried the whole night. The next day, I went looking for a job that would provide a place to sleep. A bakery shop needed a worker for their factory about 20 miles away. They agreed to give me a place to sleep and offered me food. They baked at home and needed a helping hand. They offered me to live in their backyard, but I had to clean it up. I agreed. The place was pretty messed up with flour and sugar everywhere, not to mention the rodents living off it. But I was at my lowest point and took the job. I packed my stuff and left. My sister was even happy and said, "Good that you're leaving, we don't have space for you here." No one even bothered to ask where I was going. I cleaned up the place and made it livable. Initially, it was hard to get rid of the rodents that came searching for food, but eventually, I felt comfortable living there. I had to drop out of high school, just a few months shy of the final year exams. My friends urged me to stay in my parents' backyard and finish high school, but I had given up. I focused on my job and lived off my salary. Soon, I realized I needed to upskill to get a better job. I picked up a few skills. My dad is a mechanic, so I grew up playing with his toolbox. It saved my parents from buying me toys, and I also helped Dad with plumbing around the house. I saved up and took a course, eventually landing a job at a car plant. I worked tirelessly to climb the ladder, and now I'm a supervisor. Recently, an old friend was urgently selling his house due to divorce issues and wanted a quick buyer. I was hesitant to buy a 3-bedroom house, but he offered a hefty discount on the market price and allowed me to make the down payment in parts. I jumped at the opportunity. 2 weeks ago, I moved into my new house, and today, I found unexpected guests at my door: my parents, sister, and brother-in-law. It was a shock because I had been no contact with them for years, and they hadn't reached out to me either. This house is nearly 15 miles from their place, so there's no way they stumbled upon it by chance. I'm not in touch with any relatives, either in person or on social media, but I suspect a neighbor might have informed them. I still keep in touch with one of my old neighbors, and he might have seen pictures of my house on Facebook and told my parents. I have no idea how they figured out the exact address, but my dad knew where I worked, so maybe he got it from there. As soon as I opened the door, they barged into my house. Mom and Dad congratulated me and said they were proud of me. I smiled and offered them a chair. I'm still in the process of furnishing the place, so I only have a bed, a few chairs, and a table. My parents sat down and started asking about the house deal. They found it unbelievable that I could buy a house at 35 while they were still renting. Meanwhile, my sister and her deadbeat husband were casually strolling through my house as if planning to move in. I asked them why they suddenly showed up in my life. They said, "Nothing, just checking on you." Funny, huh? They checked up on me when I needed them the least. They started updating me about their lives. Dad has hypertension, my sister has 3 kids, 14, 9 and 4. And she's pregnant again. Well, good for her. I just sat there nodding, debating whether to yell at them or politely ask them to leave. Mom asked if I was getting married or had a girlfriend. I said it's none of her business. She responded, "Why are you so cranky? Is everything all right?" I said everything was fine until they showed up. She laughed and offered to help if settling into the new house was overwhelming for me. Just then my sister announced, "I've decided we're going to take the bedroom with the attached balcony and bathroom. I'm so excited to have my own bathroom. The kids can have the other room." I flipped out and asked, "What the hell is happening here?" My sister said, "You have a 3-bedroom house and you're a single man. You don't need so much space. You used to live in a tent, so getting a bedroom is quite an upgrade for you. This house is big enough for all of us." My parents cut her off and asked her to attend to her youngest son, who was crying for attention. I looked at my parents and asked them what my sister just said. Dad explained that accommodating 7 people in a small house was getting tough. My sister's eldest son, 14, was sleeping on the couch, the middle one was with my parents, and the youngest with my sister. And now, with another baby on the way, they needed a bigger house. I screamed and Mom said, "You know you have a big house now. Can't you take your sister in?" Before she finished I yelled, "Hell no, I'm not taking anyone into my house." My sister screamed that I owed her for bringing me into this world, the same old story. "Mom and Dad would never have had you if I wasn't there. You owe me a place here. Our house is so crowded I can't even breathe." I replied, "Yes, thanks to you and thanks for bringing me into this world. Now get out." Before anyone could say anything, I asked them to leave. Dad tried his tough approach, raising his voice and saying it was my duty as the man of the house to take care of my sister. I yelled back that I had no obligation to take care of her, but as parents, they were obligated to take care of me, and they failed. He was okay with his grandson sleeping on the couch, but when I asked, he refused and threw me out. I read it about how I survived with rodents in my employer's garage and lived in a dingy apartment for a decade, but none of them ever checked on me. Mom started sobbing and tried to hug me. I blocked her and asked them to leave. Bill said, "Man up, bro. I've lived that life for years and never complained. You have a big house and you're single. What do you need all this space for?" I gestured for him to shut up. My sister started cussing me for shouting at her husband. I said, "Well then, get out if you don't want me to knock him down." I chased them out of my house without letting them speak another word. I'm fuming with anger. They were always toxic and narcissistic, and now they've turned greedy. But I'm not 16 anymore, blindly following their orders like a puppet. If they keep pestering me, I won't hesitate to call the cops on them. Update. My sister and her junkie husband broke into my house. Some of you asked if my sister offered to pay rent. The answer is a big no. She hasn't, and she can't afford rent. She and her junkie husband are freeloaders and child-making machines. They've been leeching off my parents for 12 years, and now they want to do the same to me. It's not like my parents are happy about it. I saw the frustration in their eyes during their last visit. But instead of throwing her out, they're trying to offload those lazy bumps onto me. A week after our first encounter, my mom showed up at my house again. This time she didn't beat around the bush and told me I should let my sister move in with me. I said no way. She repeated the same stuff about how difficult it was to accommodate so many people in a small house, blah blah. Still, it was a no for me. Then she tried to threaten me. I should have seen it coming. She said, "See honey, you live alone in this big house and you're gone for 12 hours a day. What if someone breaks in? If a family lives here, it would be safer for you. Plus, you'll get help with cleaning, dishes and laundry." I said, "For the last time, no, and go away. I don't want any of you at my house." A few days later, one of my neighbors told me he saw a pregnant woman with a man and a young boy loitering around my property. They were peeping in through the windows, wandering around the backyard, and it seemed like they were trying to sneak in. He's an old man who sits on his front porch all afternoon. When they noticed he was watching them, they went away. He informed me as a goodwill gesture. I thanked him, gave him my number, and asked him to call me if he ever saw them again. My house wasn't equipped with cameras yet. I had intended to install them over the weekend. Who knew they would break in before then? Just 2 days later, I got a call from my elderly neighbor saying he suspected someone had broken into my house. I rushed home in a panic. He was right. My sister and Bill had broken in through the back window. She said, "We didn't have any other options. You were being a jerk and not allowing us. Now we live here, and you suck it up." I was in shock. How far she went to flaunt her entitlement. Bill came out of the room they had turned into their bedroom and said, "It was pretty smooth, huh?" Without thinking twice, I charged at Bill. My sister stepped in between, and I dragged her aside. I punched him in the face. Their 14-year-old son attacked me with a bottle, and my head started bleeding. The blow wasn't severe, and I was on the verge of blackout, but my rage kept me conscious. They all panicked at the sight of blood. My sister called my parents and told them what happened. Bill and his son started cleaning up the mess. My neighbor called the cops. My sister and Bill started apologizing and begged me to spare their son from being arrested. I said, "All of you are going down with him." The cops arrived and took my statement. My sister denied all allegations of breaking in and assaulting me. She claimed they were visiting my house, her son played a prank on me, and I accidentally slipped and hurt my head. She said I was mad at them and falsely framing them. What a liar. Meanwhile, my parents arrived and forced me to drop the charges. They all ganged up to make me look like a liar, claiming I was using the cops to settle a grudge against my sister. Thank God my neighbor stepped in and gave his statement, and based on that, the cops arrested them. They had to spend the night behind bars because my parents couldn't afford bail. The next day, they were presented for trial. I went to the hospital to get my wounds dressed. The doctor scanned it for internal injuries. I had to take a couple of days off to nurse my wounds. I pressed assault charges against them and also claimed compensation for my losses, and the court agreed that they should bear it. Meanwhile, my parents tried everything to make me drop the charges, but I threatened to sue them for planning the assault. Her son, being a minor, was dealt with according to juvenile law. He got a week in a juvenile facility, and his parents had to pay for restitution, lost wages, and medical bills. My sister and Bill were heavily fined but pleaded to trade part of it for community service. It's been a week since then, and it's been silent. I hope they've learned their lesson and stay away from me. Update 2. It looks like my parents aren't off my back yet. Yesterday, they showed up at my house again. I slammed the door in their face. They stood outside for almost an hour, requesting me to hear them out. Finally, I had to let them in. I wish I could just yell from the window and threaten them like Dad did to me 12 years ago. Anyway, I asked them why they were at my door again. They both started sobbing and said they needed my help. I said if this had anything to do with my sister, then count me out. They said it was about them. Dad said, "You see, I'm growing old and fragile. I cannot work as before. Our house hasn't been repaired in many years. Everything is falling apart." I cut him off and said, "Come to the point. He and Mom wanted to move in with me. As a responsible son, I should take them in. I should have if they were responsible parents, but they were not. I asked what would happen to their house and if they were going to terminate the lease. They said they were going to give that house to my sister. I was like, oh cool, you guys have taken an alternate route to exploit me. Earlier you tried to dump my sister on me, that plan failed. Now you want to pile on for one last time. My house is not up for grabs, not for anyone. They said my sister was offering to pay me rent for living in my house, which I could use to pay the mortgage. I said, I don't need her rent. She doesn't need to worry about my mortgage. She should look out for herself instead. Mom started crying that it was becoming very difficult for my sister to make ends meet. She doesn't even get proper sleep because her children sleep in the same room. I said, it's not my problem if she is mindlessly expanding her family without financial planning. They said, what can we say? You're not agreeing to anything. You don't want to take in your sister, and you won't agree to take us in either. You should at least let us move in with you. The house is too big for one person. I replied, I don't plan to remain single forever. They tried to emotionally manipulate me, insisting that I should take care of my aging parents. I screamed, karma is real. Remember how you threw me out of the house? This is what you get in return. I opened the door for them, and they left with bitter faces. I don't care what they call me, but I'm not going to be a doormat and give in to their demands. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.